This censor suit applies constant force. Nepal's once chaotic protests are now calming. The Nepalese Communist Party regime has collapsed, and a new prime minister is working to address the situation. Now, it seems we should call it the Nepalese Revolution rather than the Nepalese protests. Let's take a proper look at the news from Nepal. Let's watch right away. When the Nepalese Communist Party government blocked 26 social media platforms, including YouTube and Facebook, on September 6th, angry citizens poured into the streets. Police fired live rounds, causing more casualties as protests spread. On the 9th Prime Minister, Sharma Ali resigned under pressure and fled by helicopter. But chaos continued as the Parliament, Supreme Court, and Prosecutor's Office burned, plunging the country into anarchy. Politicians' homes were attacked, the former Prime Minister's wife died in a fire, and over 13,500 inmates escaped in a prison break. As the situation escalated to the extreme, the military decided to deploy troops. However, something completely unexpected happened recently. Actually, there was no central leader of this protest. So many people believed that the Nepalese military would eventually stage a coup and seize power. But then, something truly surprising happened. They started selecting someone to handle the situation through Discord. Hammy Nepal's youth anti-corruption server gained over 145,000 members in 4 days, enabling Nepal's young protesters to discuss politics and make decisions in real time. This Discord server served as a digital parliament for society, with discussions broadcast by Nepalese media. Because this was so influential, even the chief of staff of the Nepalese army and the president contacted the Discord administrators. They even elected an interim prime minister of Nepal via Discord. After discussions, 7,713 people voted and chose former Chief Justice Sushila Karki as interim prime minister. Sushila Karki, Nepal's first female Chief Justice, 2016 to 2017, was noted for her strong anti-corruption stance. Nepal's population is nearly 30 million. You may think this vote isn't representative since only 7,713 participated, but the office of the President of Nepal recognized it. For the first time ever, a country's representative has been elected via a digital platform. Nepal's recent situation is being recognized as an example that shows the world how digital technology and the social participation of the younger generation can become a new path for political transformation. Acting Prime Minister Karki, 73, was sworn in during a brief ceremony confirmed by Nepal's presidential office and military. He will lead the interim government for 6 months, and Acting Prime Minister Karki quickly began addressing the resignation's aftermath. He dissolved Nepal's troubled House of Representatives and gained agreement from 8 parliamentary parties. And the Nepalese House of Representatives election is scheduled to be held on March 5th, 2026, with a total of 275 new members of the House of Representatives to be elected. The military is always central when discussing Nepal's situation. Even in chaos, the military neither sought power nor political gain, which was surprising and admirable. Historically, the military has often seized power during national collapse caused by major protests and power vacuums. In fact, it was often considered the natural course of events. Even I thought the Nepalese military would seize power. The Nepalese military was unique. Despite having the chance to replace the fallen government, they never showed political ambitions. The military leadership focused solely on stabilizing the situation. Despite protesters burning parliament and attacking ministers, the military avoided indiscriminate violence against civilians. They did not forget their original duty as a shield protecting the people, not those in power, and in fact, not a single protester lost their life during the military's intervention. They kept order with military vehicles and equipment, focusing on calming chaos instead of oppression. This point is seen not just as a simple fact, but as one of the decisive factors that allowed these protests to ultimately become a major turning point. Had the military shown any interest in power, protesters would have grown angrier, and Nepal could have faced civil war or a military regime. Because the military stayed composed and focused on security, not politics, the protests succeeded in overthrowing the regime. In other words, the most surprising and remarkable presence in this situation was not only the courage and anger of the protesters, but also the military on the other side, who did not lose their reason. The restraint and sense of balance shown by the Nepalese military will remain as an example that proves a nation can still hold on to hope even in the midst of extreme chaos. After the Karki interim government was established, the Nepalese military returned to their bases, and all curfews and restrictions were lifted. Thanks to the efforts of the Karki interim government and the Nepalese military, Nepal is quickly regaining stability, shops have reopened, and the streets are bustling with vehicles again. Nepalese citizens also showed maturity. Protesters came out with brooms and trash cans to clean up the cities they had disrupted. Some people even brought painting tools and were seen repainting. And some protesters were seen returning looted electronics. Thanks to this, cities in Nepal, including Kathmandu, are becoming more stable. Neighboring countries are welcoming Nepal's stability. Prime Minister Modi congratulated Prime Minister Karki on his inauguration via social media, expressing India's full support for Nepal's peace and development. Of course, there were also countries that did not simply watch this situation from afar and evaluate it positively. Among them, the country showing the most discomfort is definitely China. From China's perspective, the recent situation in Nepal is not just turmoil in a neighboring country, but a serious issue directly related to its own interests. Nepal has recently shown a growing pro-China tendency. Recently, the two countries held joint military exercises, boosting cooperation. The coalition government, led by the Nepal Communist Party and Nepali Congress, has kept strong ties with China. Through this, China tried to bring Nepal in as a strategic ally in its competition with India, and in fact, it was in the process of solidifying Nepal as a stable partner. When the government collapsed and people flooded the streets, the situation quickly changed. Right now, the young people and student groups raising their voices in the streets are generally not favorable toward China. They believe Nepal's government is too close to China, threatening sovereignty, which fuels resentment toward pro-China politicians and increases anti-China sentiment. Some see the parliament fire and attacks on ministers as not just anti-government, but also anger at political groups linked to China. This shift is certainly an unwelcome trend from China's perspective. China views Nepal as vital to its Belt and Road Initiative and has managed ties to gain military and economic control over border areas. If public anger and anti-China sentiment rise together, China's hard-earned diplomatic gains could quickly collapse. There are concerns China might not only voice worries, but also try to intervene directly or indirectly. China could take on a political or mediating role, or it might try to regain its influence by offering economic support as leverage. If Nepal's situation continues, China will face pressure to manage an unstable border. Given the Himalayan border's strategic value, China can't ignore chaos in Nepal. These protests are no longer just a political event in Nepal, but have become a sensitive issue affecting China's direct interests. Nepal has resolved the immediate crisis by inaugurating acting Prime Minister Karki, but challenges remain. The main challenge is creating a legitimate, stable government through elections. With about 6 months until the March 2026 general election, Prime Minister Karki must address corruption, electoral reform, and social conflicts. In particular, since the existing political parties are already deeply rooted, a key variable for the future of the country will be how much the new political forces that emerged around Discord can enter the established system. If the existing political establishment regains its strength, there is a possibility that this revolution could end up being just a temporary outburst. Economic issues are also unavoidable in this turmoil, and Nepal's tourism industry, trade, and investment environment have suffered significant damage. Tourism has halted, foreign capital may withdraw over instability, and prices and unemployment are already rising. If the interim government doesn't provide practical economic recovery steps, public sentiment may quickly fade, risking the revolution's achievements. Foreign relations are also a source of instability. India calls Nepal a brother nation, but too much dependence on India could become a diplomatic burden. China is uneasy about the situation and will likely use pressure to regain its political and economic influence. The United States and European Union support restoring democracy in Nepal, so how Nepal balances diplomacy with major powers will be a key test. Most importantly, Nepal's civil society must continue participating. The political participation of the younger generation and their mature civic consciousness, as demonstrated through the Discord Parliament, have already attracted the attention of the international community. If online passion doesn't translate into real institutional politics, this revolution may just be seen as a brief experiment. In the end, it is no exaggeration to say that the future of Nepal depends on whether this new experiment of digital democracy can be established within an institutional framework. Nepal is at a crossroads. Will it pursue its new blend of democracy and digital technology despite chaos, or will traditional forces take back control and return to the past? This is clearly a historic turning point, which is why the world is watching Nepal. What are your thoughts on the successful protests there? Please share your thoughts in the comments as well. That concludes this video. Thank you.